To create a new alarm in Keynote, mouse over the Alarms tab and pick the Create option. Once you've done that, you're going to get a screen that shows you all of the measurements that exist in your account. Select one or more of those, and then move up to the top and click Create Alarm. That'll take you to the next screen, which is a large form you're going to fill out. I'm going to walk through those parameters one by one here. At the top, you've got an option to give your alarm a name. You can leave it called default or name it whatever configuration you're giving it. So you don't need to name the alarm with the name of the measurement. That's already going to be pre-appended to your alarm name. Second, you can clone from an existing alarm if you want to pick up the same settings from a prior alarm. And then just to the right of that, there's a checkbox that says Enable Warning Alert. That's an optional setting. You don't have to use a warning, but that's one of the states that's possible. My recommendation is to not use a warning unless you know you want to be alerted sooner than the rest of your team, for example. If that's not the case, don't check warning. Below that, you'll type in email addresses of who alarms will go to. And you can also choose an alarm group just to the right of that if you've got one built already. If you want to build an email group, you'd mouse over the user icon in the top right corner of my Keynote and pick Settings and go ahead and build an email group there. And then you'll see that group here and you'll be able to choose it. If you're using just emails, you can have many email addresses here separated by semicolons. Step 2, you're going to pick a time zone. You'll pick this zone for whatever your recipients are in. And then below that, you'll see 4 boxes. Those are 2 rows of configurations. We're going to walk through those one at a time here. So performance and availability are the 2 metrics that we can alarm on in Keynote. The top box here is where you configure your performance thresholds, and then below that is where you set availability percentages. On the top box, Performance Alarm Configuration, you can check the checkbox if you want to enable or disable this calculation. The default is obviously checked, so if you don't need to alert on performance, you can uncheck that. That essentially turns off that calculation. Otherwise, you're going to set thresholds here for performance in seconds. 3 and 4 seconds is just a default. You're going to want to set those to whatever makes sense for your measurement. So it's a good idea to go in and chart your measurement first and find out what is it averaging. Then you're going to enter a threshold here that makes sense. Now you can also use a dynamic threshold. That's in the bottom of the configuration box if you have a baseline already built. So a dynamic threshold will be a multiple of that baseline at any given time. So you can baseline your average performance either for a recent past overall or at a specific hour of the week. So an example would be if every Tuesday at 3 p.m. your performance is typically 2 seconds, then a multiple of 1.5 would have a 3-second trigger. Step 4 is to the right of those boxes. You're going to have notification management. This is important because it determines how many messages are sent from Keynote. The first field, number of alerts per severity level, that's usually set to 2. Our recommendation is to change that to 1 unless you want to get numerous messages when a state is encountered. Right below that, you've got an escalation option. That means we'll notify you again 30 minutes later if the state has not cleared itself. You still have a problem. So here's a quick example of that. At noon, an alarm goes off. Keynote sends you an email. At 12:05, we calculate the threshold again because we calculate every 5 minutes. And at that point, we'll send you another email. That second email is going to be pretty much a repeat of the first one, and that's because you've got alerts set to 2 here. At 12:10, we calculate again. And what happens then? You would not get a third email because your notifications are set to 2. So then time progresses. Let's just say at 12:15, the state clears. You're now back to normal. At that point, you get a message that says now okay. And that's because this is checked by default. Most people like to get those. Let's say it doesn't clear. Time passes, you still have an alarm state at hand. And when we get to 12:30, Keynote sends another message. This is an escalation message. That's because we have set escalation to 30 minutes. You can set that up to 2 hours, and then you can add other email recipients in this field here so they get brought onto the thread at that point. Our second recommendation is to not use an escalation unless you have a team that's going to be able to respond and you want to bring them onto the thread at that point. If you do have an escalation and the alarm state persists for a whole day or 2, you're going to get emails every 30 minutes. So this notification is going to keep happening over and over and over until the state goes away. That has the potential to send you a lot of emails, and for that reason we recommend don't use escalation. Okay, step 5, setting the availability configs right below that. You've got a checkbox there again to either enable or disable availability calculations, and then you set your appropriate thresholds for when you want to get alerted. Again, availability is that metric of successful tests over all tries. And so if the drop below is 90%, you're in a warning. If it goes below 80, you're in critical state. Next, you've got notification management for availability, the same exact fields we talked about a second ago. So you'll repeat your settings for availability as well. And again, probably best case would be to use 1 up top and then no additional notification. On the bottom left of your form, you've got a box that says General Options. You can configure what page or all pages that we're alarming on. You can also specify how much time Keynote is looking back. That's called the look back window. So you can use time and specify up to 2 hours, or you can use a number of data points, which would be a quantity of tests that happened. So essentially you can tell us to look back at 5 tests and don't worry about how recent those occurred, and use those to get a specific calculation. The default is to use time, and you can set it back to 2 hours maximum. Once you've saved your config at the bottom, you click on Save Changes, and then the alarm will begin calculating. If you click on the Configure option under Alarms tab, you'll see a list of all your current alarms, and we'll show you the check boxes for which of the 2 calculations, if not both, are happening. Thank you for watching.